Hey, it's John from 6th Place Off-Road. Here's how to install a Rhino-Rack Backbone on a 4-door Jeep JL. Before we get started, let's lay everything out on that mat that Rhino has provided to ensure we have A, all the right parts, and B, they go to the right spot. To start things off, let's remove those 3 factory T50 bolts that would remove the hardtop from the body. Once we have those Torx 50 bolts removed, we're going to install the rear upright. For the left, that's part number 1. For the right, that's part number 2. We are going to use those factory T50 bolts. Leave these loose at the moment. Once the rear upright's in place, it's onto the front upright. On the left is part number 3, on the right is part number 4. This will put in that 3rd factory T50 bolt. This is where we're going to do the shifting. This is why we left everything loose. Once those are lined up, let's tighten those up. And just like that, we are onto the least comforting part for any vehicle owner. We're drilling through that roof. What you want to do here is push that rear upright against the panel and drill through at the matching angle. To do this, we're going to be using a 5/16 drill bit. Drill through slowly. This will not cause problems on the other side. The paint may chip a little, but it will be covered up. It's fiberglass, it can't rust. If you're concerned, just put a little tape on it. Throughout this process, we are going to be making a bit of a mess with fiberglass dust and some silicone. So I do highly recommend having a good shop vac and some rags on hand to clean up as we go so that we don't make a mess of the inside of the Jeep. Now that the holes are drilled, let's add some silicone. Add a little more than needed. It's a lot easier to clean a little off the back end and ensure that we are watertight. With the holes drilled and silicone filled, we are going to mount that rear casting. To do so, we're going to put a shoulder bolt through the casting, the fiberglass shell, a washer, then that rear upright, another washer, and a nylock nut. This is so much easier with help from a friend. For the middle casting, we're going to be using the corresponding horizontal plate. For the left, that's 5. For the right, that's 6. Definitely double check your manual for this one. As you see here, we are using that spacer tool now. We're doing that at this 6mm. This is very important for everything to line up. To mount the middle casting to the front upright, we're going to use the spacer bushing as a guide to drill a 1/4-inch hole. Then remove the guide and drill those holes to 5/16, same as we did for the rear casting. Once those holes are drilled, we're going to do the same that we did to the rear. We're going to remove the casting, clean the area, fill those holes with silicone. Now the casting is going to go back on. We're going to have the shoulder bolt go through again. That's going to go through the casting, fiberglass, the washer, the inner upright, washer, and another nylock nut. Again, get a friend, so much easier. Now that the middle casting is attached firmly, we're going to use that horizontal bar again to line up the front casting. One trick with this is if you look, those larger holes at the front, those are going to fit the spacer bushing, which we're going to use as a guide again. But that'll basically tell you that we have it in the right orientation. For the front casting, we are going to use that spacer multi-tool again. We are doing it in the 11mm setting this time. It is very important you get that right. So for this step, we are using that spacer bushing again as a guide with the 1/4-inch drill bit. again. Now drilling through here, we only want to go through the first layer of the roof. There are 2 layers in this part. Do not go through the second part. We are going to go through it eventually, but we do want to make sure everything is aligned and square. A drill stop is the ideal tool here, but in a pinch, you can use a socket like I'm doing here. It's a bit crude, but it works, and I've done it a lot. And with most projects on your vehicle, you're going to do 2 steps forward, 1 back, especially with this kind of situation. So here, we're going to be moving that horizontal plate and that casting so that we can drill the 1/2 inch hole now down through the first layer only. Here we're using that guide. This guide does come with the kit. It works quite well. It does stop you from going all the way through. So now that the 1/2 inch hole is drilled through the first layer, we're going to put the front casting back on and then use those spacer bushings to give us a guide to drill the 1/4 inch pilot hole again through the second layer. Then we'll remove it all, drill that 1/2 inch hole. We're just doing this to make sure that everything lines up straight, as we really need these to line up with that inner roll bar. And again, it is time to remove parts and clean. So keep that shop vac handy. A little rag will clean this up really nicely. We just want to get that fiberglass dust out of there. For this front casting, because it is a dual wall, I like to add, well, actually probably I like to be a little excessive with the silicone. I'm just trying to make sure that nothing gets through. So I will put silicone on the top here, push it down inside, and then you'll see with the casting, I'm gonna go a little overboard. You do not have to do this, but this is not my Jeep, so I'm gonna make sure that nothing's coming through. So now that we've added a copious amount of silicone, we're gonna add those spacer bushings into this assembly. We are done with them as guides. This is their true purpose, which is basically to brace between the first and second layer of the roof so we can't crush anything when we attach to that inner roll bar. Now that the front casting's up, it's time to do the roll bar casting. This one can be a little bit difficult. If you need to, you can loosen off the hard top to shift things around and get things lined up. You shouldn't need to do that, but it can be a bit of a fight. So take your time, and if you need to, like I said, release that front. So now that the roll bar casting is in place, we are now going to attach that front casting to the roll bar casting. So here we are dropping in a rubber washer, metal washer, this 65mm dome bolt, and that will drop through, and then it's going to attach to a flanged nylock nut in that roll bar casting. During this process, leave everything a little loose until every bolt is kind of in its place, and then we'll tighten those up. With the front castings done, fully tight, installed, it is time to use those horizontal plates in the place they are intended to be used, and that is bracing the top between the rear and front upright. Tighten those in place, and then we are literally done. And with that, your backbone system is installed. Now from here, you're gonna have to pick whether you wanna do crossbars or a platform. That really just comes to your needs and what you wanna do. If you're thinking about a bunch of luggage, random shaped things, spare tire, go platform. If you're thinking paddleboards, kayaks, canoes, bikes, skis, then crossbars might be the way to go. Honestly though, it's 100% your choice, and this will allow you to do whatever you want. For this setup, we are using the Vortex bars and the RLT 600s. Now this is a quick release system, so it's nice and easy to take off. If you want it to be lower, they do make options to keep everything a little bit lower. If you have questions, comments, maybe some helpful tips that I did not point out because you have done this yourself and know a better way, please put them below. I'm always trying to help people have a good time, get out, enjoy the bush, but I don't know everything.